people have these belief systems, Christian, Muslim, Jew, we'll say for that, and you're saying abandon those, let's say, and move towards this transcendent rationality. It's like, okay, two problems. It's not so easy to abandon a belief system because you end up in the morally relativist nihilist pit, and that's a problem.
One doesn't have to. And many
people tend to, and so it's a very major problem.
It's just not. I mean,
they don't have to. Look,
wait.
Sam,
that's an empirical claim that we'd have to find out whether that's true. But there's a lot of evidence against that.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of evidence for it too, but it's beside the point to some degree because that isn't something that I want to quibble about. Perhaps there are transitional paths, and sometimes people find a collapse of their faith actually freeing. It's certainly the case that many of the people who are happy about what you're doing have found exactly that in what you've been saying, and more power to you. And so I'm not willing to dispute that. But what you said was, okay, here's these belief systems that are ancient and complex, and we can step outside of them, and there's this transcendent rationality that we could all aspire to that would solve the problems. It's like, okay, what is it?
Well,
what is it exactly?
It is, at a minimum, to value all of the variables that conspire to make the one life we know we have.
Okay, you can't value all those variables.
Well, no, we're doing it right. We do it every day in how we organize ourselves in society.
No, we don't, because we apply an a priori framework to the variables to reduce them to a tiny subset that we can manage. And it's the nature of that a priori framework that we haven't been able to have a discussion about. We have an a priori framework that narrows our perception to almost nothing. It's built into us. It's partly socially constructed. It has a deep neurological substrate. And we actually understand how it emerges to a large degree. And the thing is that...
But I don't think that's actually our difference. I mean, so the a priori framework operates in many different spaces, which, again, we can't necessarily analyze, but it makes it no less true. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, you will immediately feel a very good reason, in fact, an unarguably good reason to remove it, right? And it doesn't require moral philosophy to get you there. You don't need to inspect your a priori framework. You just have to feel, holy shit, this is the worst thing I've ever felt, right? And there's so many moments like that in life that we understand.
What if you're trying to rescue your child from a fire?
Well, exactly. Then you have some other goal, right?
Yes,
that is going to cause you to brave that suffering, right?
Yes.
But again, trying to rescue your child from a fire is pretty close to the hot stove in not needing to be analyzed, right? The imperative to rescue it becomes harder when you have to rescue someone else's child from a fire, and you're worried about orphaning your child who's standing next to you on the sidewalk, right? Then we get into the domain of moral philosophy, and then you can say, well, how much do each of us owe the children of other people, right? How much should I risk my life and risk orphaning my child to rescue your child? That's when things get interesting in a philosophy seminar, and that's where people begin to hesitate. People begin to, we are biased toward protecting ourselves, protecting our kin, protecting our friends, and only then do we begin to extend the circle. And again, but this is not a mystery where we want to go here. We want to extend the circle more and more and build institutions and societies that implement our best selves at our best moments more and more. It makes it more effortless to be good in the world. We want good incentives.
Can we take your example seriously here for a second?
Yeah.
All right, so you are built to be more likely to rescue your own child than someone else's child from a fire. We in society might like for the minimum number of children to die in fires as possible, which gets you to sideline that consideration in favor of, is there a child who's faced with a fire who I might rescue? Religions do exactly this restructuring of values because they say something like, actually, your goodness in risking your own life to save that other child from a fire is observed, and it is calculated, and you will be rewarded for it in some way.
That's one possible benefit of some religions, right?
Good.
And again, so you put that on the balance, but I have a lot to put on the other side of the balance.
Sure you do.
Right?
I know you've got
how it's going to swing.
never-ending list.
Look,
right.
I want to.
Well, that's what I'm trying to point out to Jordan here, which he actually acknowledges, which is that he's got a big stack of good things that come from this heuristic, but he's also
But
acknowledging
this is
that
actually this is our core disagreement here, which is however the balance is going to swing. The difference between us here is that I think we read the utility of anything, but in this case, religious thinking, as evidence of you read it as evidence of something, perhaps literally true.
Inevitability. Depends on what you mean by literal.
Yeah, so and I view that as a kind of version of either the genetic or naturalistic fallacy, that it's just like, whether it's useful now here for us, it doesn't argue that it's the best way of getting those good things. I mean, my argument here is that religion gives people bad reasons to be good where good reasons are available.
Okay,
right?
so
and that's a problem, right?
Right.
And because good reasons scale better than bad reasons. And I think we can even if you take the case where religion is clearly useful in a life-saving, utterly benign way, in virtually all of those cases, I think I can get you there by some other way without the downside, or if not, that's just one of those cases where, yes, the fiction was more useful than any possible
truth. How do you
truth.
distinguish a religious system from an a priori perceptual structure?
Well, if you can convert to it or away from it in a single conversation, I would say if it doesn't go very deep.
Well, you're only, I would say that for much of that, you're only converting at a very superficial level.
Well, no.
You're converting at the level of conscious apprehension, and most of your cognition is done through unconscious processing.
Well,
so it's superficial.
It's just a fact about us that most of people's religious attachment is born of having it drummed into them by their parents. Right? But the truth is...
Well, no, their parents and their parents' parents and their parents'
yes,
parents'
exactly.
parents.
But if we did the same thing with Batman and Spider-Man, it would have the same effect. Right? Like if you relentlessly told children, right? I mean, I've got two little girls who are dressed up like Batgirl right now. They love Batgirl. There's nothing. I don't have to do anything to make them more enthusiastic about superheroes apart from just showing them the pictures of superheroes, right? If I told them, in addition to look how fun this is to dress up like Batgirl, in addition, you're going to burn in hell for eternity if you lose your emotional attachment to Batgirl, even for a minute, right? Well, then it's going to be Batgirl for the rest of their lives. Especially if the entire culture is doing likewise. And again, this is...
Well, as Bret pointed out already, a bad tool is better than no tool at all. And if Batgirl is the closest approximation to a divine figure that you can conjure up, it beats the hell out of none at all. And if Batgirl didn't partake of certain archetypal structures, no one would give a damn about Batgirl.
Okay, I'm going to...
Spider-Man and Batman
I'm going to spare
play
you...
play a role in the culture.
All right.
Because,
yes.
Look,
Hold
it's
on.
not accidental. It's not accidental that superhero stories have a structure. And to say that, well, Batman and Spider-Man are obvious fictions and we could use them as moral exemplars, which we do.
You're taking the wrong end. You're taking the wrong end of this. I'm not minimizing the power of stories. Right? I'm saying we can understand their power without recourse to believing things we shouldn't believe now in the 21st century.
I still need an answer to the question about what it is that's this transcendental rational structure without an a priori dogma, because I don't see it.
Well, it's not. Well, again, we touched on this a little bit last night in that I freely admitted that in every domain of human inquiry, no matter how, the most hard-headed, so mathematics, logic, physics, at some point we have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. At some point we make a move that is not self-justifying and is not justified by any other move that's more rudimentary.
Right, that's a statement of faith. That thing
that's a callow use of the term faith.
No,
it's not the same kind of faith.
It's a precise definition of an axiomatic statement of faith.
My faith that 2 + 2 makes 4.
That's not faith.
Well, no, it is. No, it's my intuition that this is a valid and replicable and generalizable principle, right?
No, that's not faith either. Your statement that that's a useful claim is a statement of faith, but neither of those two were statements of faith.
No, they're statements of
fact.
intuition. No, these are intuitions. They're intuitions that can run afoul of other discoveries and other intuitions, as you know, which
Well, if mathematical facts are intuitions, then what are we doing with facts?
We've arrived at the point where we have to decide.
This is super important, though.
Super important. Okay,
we don't lose this.
Okay. Yeah.
For 2,000 years, people have been studying geometry and had a very well worked out set of mathematical intuitions with respect to Euclidean space, flat geometry. And then some brilliant guy, Riemann might have been the first, said, well, actually, you can curve space. I can bend this triangle, and all of a sudden it has more than 180 degrees, right? That's an intuition that people tuned up pretty quickly, but all of humanity was blind to it for the longest time, right? What I mean by intuition is, it's the thing you're using to understand something that you are not in a position to analyze.
I understand that.
But that's not faith of the sort which is, listen, I know the Bible was dictated by the creator of the universe. I know Jesus was his son. I know he rose from the dead. I know he'll be coming back. And 1,000 other propositional claims
if it's a statement of faith
highly
and it's
implausible.
valuable, if it's a statement of faith and it's in the value domain, how is it derivable from fact?